Hello, Masha Kleiner here. I think I owe you all an apology. I didn't record the digest last week, so this week we will just cover the highlights from both weeks. Last week, Carney announced that he is planning to recognize the Palestinian state. This doesn't come as a surprise if you were paying any attention at all.
Canada, our Canada is a diverse country. We can gather in different places of worship, but all of us come together, all of us must come together around the values of Eid. These are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
Carney, just like every Western leader, is obsessed with Gaza. He issues a lot of statements on Gaza. These are just recently from a few weeks ago. Let's see if he's worried about other places on earth. Syria, no. Yemen, nothing. Maybe Sudan, not interesting. Congo, where recently Christians were slaughtered, nothing. But Gaza, there is plenty, and all of them are condemnation of Israel and generic statements like Hamas should release all the hostages. How are you going to make Hamas release all the hostages? Hamas issued thank you statement to the Canadian government. After Carney announced the upcoming recognition of the Palestinian state, the Jewish Liberal MP issued a long statement, but basically it's absolutely meaningless. That's just a lot of words. The Conservative MP, Shuv Majumdar, I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name, summarized it a lot better. You've done more for Hamas than you have for Canada. And this is really true. This announcement about the Palestinian state came on the same day when the US tariffs came into effect. And instead of taking care of Canadians and our economy, Carney is just virtue signaling for his Islamist voting base. Let's take a quick step back. What is wrong with the Palestinian state? Why am I so unhappy about this announcement? There are a couple problems. First of all, this is rewarding terrorism. Hamas has committed a horrible massacre on October 7th, and Hamas has not been defeated yet. You cannot be rewarding terrorism because it only leads to more terrorism. But there also are additional reasons, some technical reasons. It's absolutely unclear where are the borders of the state, who governs the state, because Palestinian Authority, as bad as it is, it doesn't control Gaza. Hamas doesn't control Ramallah and whatever it is, the Palestinian territory in Judea and Samaria. A separate question is, what is the economy of the state? What is the currency? There is no Palestinian currency. They are using Israeli shekels, and they are depending on humanitarian aid. Is it going to be Judenrein state? Everyone is complaining so much about the made-up apartheid that allegedly Israel is. But if the Palestinian state requirement is to remove all Jews from their settlements on its territory, is it really a state that we want to support? But there is also another problem with the Palestinian state. Can you name one Palestinian leader that said that they wanted a Palestinian state next to the Jewish state? I always ask about it, and the only answer I received so far is, you are racist. But that's not a good answer. After Hamas thanked the Canadian Prime Minister for his announcement, the Hamas loyalists came to protest at Melanie Joly's house. They called her war criminal and a baby murderer, just like they do. So clearly, they are not really happy with the two-state solution. This is a very important picture that shows that Gaza receives so much more humanitarian aid than any other area in crisis. People often ask me, are you saying that there are no starving children in Gaza? How dare you? So this is, for example, a footage from Gaza from someone who is selling the humanitarian aid that is supposed to be free. This is a footage from someone welcoming Gazan refugees in a Canadian airport. And as you can see, no one here is really starving, not the children and not the woman in the background. Now, is it possible that there are some hungry children in Gaza? It's very possible. It's a war and it is horrible. But we are seeing so many fake pictures of starving children. And we are seeing so many pictures and videos of not starving people, of a lot of food, of open restaurants, that this sounds very much like a blood libel. And it has its, unfortunately, very sad consequences. So this is just a quick sneak peek into the graffiti that has been seen in Vancouver recently. It calls to globalize the Intifada, and death to the IDF is becoming a very, very popular slogan, unfortunately. This is really heartbreaking. A Jewish man was beaten in Montreal in broad daylight, and you hear his daughter screaming and trying to defend her father. You can see this video from Montreal where a child walks in a t-shirt that says, "Israel kills kids like me." But way too often, children that are killed in Gaza actually look like this guy. He's 17 years old. Now, am I saying that no innocent toddlers are being killed in Gaza? Unfortunately, there are, and war is horrible, and I hope it ends soon. But very often, these are Hamas teenage or child soldiers, and it is very tragic, and this is one of the reasons why Hamas must be defeated. There is a big campaign now to apply pressure on Canadian immigration to allow more refugees to come. So I call this the Hamas carols. This rally is organized by Alavda, which is the new Samidun, and IGV Vancouver. And you can also see this peaceful guy that has Brigade Al-Qassam on his t-shirt. What is really annoying for me personally is the comparison of Gazans to Ukrainian. It's a very popular narrative. You can see it here. Canada approved 900,000 visas for Ukrainians. So what is wrong for this comparison? Let's talk about it for a second. Ukrainians never vowed to destroy Russia and kill all Russians. Ukrainians didn't spend 18 years firing rockets at a neighboring country and digging terror tunnels underneath schools. Ukrainians didn't break through the border to rape, torture, and kidnap Russians. Ukrainian men heroically fight to protect their women and children. They don't hide behind them. One of my followers wrote to me last week, "Oh, you are saying it because you think that all Gazans are Hamas and you are racist." I've been called racist before, but let's explore this for a second. How many Ukrainian organizations are designated as terrorists in Canada? How many Ukrainian rallies have blocked roads, bridges, vandalized our cities, and called for violence? According to very conservative estimates, about 100,000 Gazans are members of Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, PFLP, and other smaller terror groups. That's one in every 20 Gazans. So how many of them are you comfortable bringing into Canada? I'm not a racist, I'm just a realist. Another funny observation, this is one of the endless 4 Palestine groups, and they write, "The Canadian flag doesn't belong at Palestine protests." Am I the only one noticing the hypocrisy? You want to bring more Gazans into Canada, but you say that the Canadian flag does not belong? I don't know if we really want you in our country. Last but not least, a report was released this week documenting the Palestine exception, an overview of trends in Islamophobia, anti-Palestinian racism, anti-Arab racism in Canada in the aftermath of October 7. It's a very, very long document. So first of all, Arabs and Palestinians are not a race, so there cannot be anti-Palestinian racism. Let's explore in more details. Last week, there was an article about a couple complaining about Islamophobia and saying that they live in fear. So you read about these horrible incidents, but one thing that you notice is this sign in their background that says East End for a Free Palestine. And in a way, for me, it summarizes the entire Islamophobia narrative. They want to hate Jews and Israelis and call for violence, but not be called out on that. And a similar thing happens with the Islamophobia report. It issues several recommendations. One of the recommendations is to recognize APR on all levels of government. This is another long PDF about anti-Palestinian racism, naming, framing, and manifestations. So this basically says that calling anything related to Palestinians terrorism is racist. So saying Hamas is a terrorist organization is racist. And another thing that is racist is acknowledge the connection of Jewish people to Judea and Samaria. So basically, if you say that Jews are indigenous to Judea or Israel is the ancestral homeland of Jewish people, this is anti-Palestinian racism. The recommendation is to adopt this on all levels of government. Last year, we had an incident when Toronto School Board took children into a field trip that was supposed to be about ecology, but students ended up leading a chant, Free Palestine, led by Palestinian Youth Movement, which is a pro-terror group. So there was a lot of criticism about this field trip, but what this Islamophobia report demands is legitimizing and encouraging this sort of political activism in schools. Another important thing that this report suggests is recognizing the Nakba. Nakba is translated as catastrophe, and the Islamophobia advocates demand that Canada recognizes Nakba as the beginning of the destruction of the Palestinian homeland. Now, before 1948, the so-called Palestinian homeland was the British mandate. So this claim is ridiculous. Nakba practically is the Arabs' failure to complete Hitler's job. Nakba is also an ongoing attempt to hijack the history of the Holocaust. That's why there are so many popular comparisons. For example, this local newspaper on Vancouver Island posts this quiz, Gaza or Warsaw Ghetto. Another somewhat relevant narrative is the return. Return is basically the dream of the Palestinian people to complete Hitler's job. It's to reverse the Nakba, go back to the Israeli cities and drive the Jews out. And this is why the recognition of the Palestinian state by the Canadian Prime Minister is so worrisome, because it reinforces the Palestinians' belief that they will be able to return. They consider the Palestinian state alongside the Jewish state as just the first step towards the return. And unless they are willing to give up this so-called right of return that they believe that they have after generations, after starting endless wars, after committing all the terrorist attacks, if they believe that they can return, they will never stop with the terrorism and there will not be peace. So that's it for me for today. I hope you enjoyed this dark digest and I hope for better news.